Revealed with the release of the Season 1 roadmap on November 7th, 2024, and fully released alongside Season 1 Reloaded on December 5th, 2024, Citadelle des Morts is the third map overall and the first DLC map in Black Ops 6 Zombies. Following the revelations at the end of the Terminus main quest, the team races to Avalon in order to rendezvous with Sergei Ravenov and rescue demonology professor Gabriel Kraft from the French Syndicate and Project Janus, to hopefully retrieve the Sentinel artifact before Richtofen can get his grubby hands on it. So without any delay, let's dive into Citadelle des Morts. So you see, dear viewer, there I was, writing the script for this video, done with the recap section fairly quickly before 115 day, but apparently, Treyarch wanted to make this harder for me, because on that fateful January 15th, they announced that not only were we getting our next round-based map titled The Tomb, but that it was also coming along with the launch of Season 2, which is way earlier than any of us were expecting. So while I won't be including anything about the Tomb in this video, I will be adding all of the content in the Season 2 update alongside the Season 1 content, and anything that comes out after this video will be recapped in the Tomb video. Deal? Well, you can't answer me, so here we go. Let's start off with all the new weapons added. Season 1 and 2 thus far have introduced 10 new weapons alongside 4 new attachments similar to Modern Warfare 3's aftermarket part system. These weapons include the Krieg C assault rifle, the SAUG SMG, the PPSH-41 SMG, the Cypher 91 assault rifle, and the Fang 82 light machine gun featured in both the Season 1 and 2 Battle Pass respectively. Then there's the Siren special weapon and Power Drill melee weapon rewarded during the Hit List event, the Maelstrom shotgun earned from completing the Merry Mayhem XP event, the AMR Mod 3 sniper earned during Archie's Festive Frenzy, and the Cleaver melee weapon as the ultimate reward for the free track in the Squid Games event. And finally, the TR2 as a reward for completing the Shadow Hunt event during Season 2. As for the attachments, players were able to gain access to the buffer weight stock, applicable to the XM4, DM10, and XMG through the Hit List event, the Dragon's Breath rounds for all shotguns currently available from the Season 1 Battle Pass, the Burst Fire mod for the XM4 and the Compact 92 submachine gun through the Merry Mayhem and Archie Festive Frenzy event respectively, the Underbarrel crossbow in the Season 2 Battle Pass, the full auto mod for the AEK 973 as rewarded during the Terminator event, and finally, the binary trigger for the Tonto 22 SMG as a reward for the Shadow Hunt event. On top of new guns, Zombies received 2 brand new perks, a field upgrade, an ammo mod, 6 new Gobblygums, and 2 new support streaks. So let's start with the first perk. Vulture Aid makes its grand return to the series after being last seen in Black Ops 2 Buried. Just like its previous counterpart, it emphasizes little loot drops from the zombies, which include points and ammo drops. With augments, players can restore the perk's ability to drop a gas cloud that hides players from zombies, or turn that into a cloud that charges your selected field upgrade quicker, making the perk incredibly versatile across all maps. After that, we have the, it's the return of Death Perception, last seen in MWZ, but reintroduced in Cold War, and originally from Black Ops 4. At its base function, zombies and other enemies are highlighted through walls, giving players a better idea of the location of the hordes that surround them. While its augments aren't the best, the perk functions as a useful tool to gain more loot from different sources, which on a map like Citadelle or even Terminus can be huge. Then we have our new field upgrade, Tesla Storm, returning from Cold War, and more recently last year's Modern Warfare Zombies. Players could earn Tesla Storm as a reward during the Merry Mayhem event, and just like in Cold War, this field upgrade revolves around creating a chain of lightning between you and your friends in order to shock any incoming zombies. With the use of augments, Tesla Storm is arguably one of the most powerful field upgrades in the game currently, and super easily can carry any player in a match. Also in the Merry Mayhem event was our actual brand new ammo mod, Lightmend. This ammo mod has a heavy emphasis on healing both the player using it and those around them. When a player with the ammo mod equipped gets a kill, there's a chance for the zombie to drop a little healing orb that will immediately levitate toward a player who has taken damage while near it. While these orbs can despawn after a short period, they are invaluable in some cases, and with augments that focus on keeping the orb there for longer and healing more for each tick, the ammo mod is a force to be reckoned with. Finally, our new support streaks. starting out with the hand cannon, which returns from Cold War. Still the Desert Eagle like before, but gone is that very 80s laser sight, and here in its place is a more modern, sleek design. The hand cannon costs $12.50 salvage at the crafting bench, and just like Cold War, the hand cannon is capable of dishing out heavy damage to elites and can pierce upwards of 7 zombies with a single shot, which is absolutely devastating for the oncoming horde. And then, with the Terminator event, Treyarch gave us the War Machine, which costs $22.50 salvage at the crafting bench. This time around, it's a 3-round burst grenade launcher that has 30 shots, which means it essentially has the same amount of ammo as the one from Cold War. While its firing may be different, god damn is it just as satisfying to use. It can clear just about anything off the field with ease, and feels good while doing so. As for Gobblegums, we received Power Keg, Dead Drop, Modified Chaos, Timeout, Holiday Cheer, and Quacknarok. Power Keg is a returner from Black Ops 4, and when used spawns a full power drop. Then there's Dead Drop, which increases the drop rate of salvage and equipment for 5 minutes, which is an incredibly huge buff. After that, we have Modified Chaos, which lowers the cooldown timer for all ammo mods for 2 minutes, followed up by Timeout, which ends the current round and gives 3 minutes of reprieve before the hordes come back. And finally, there's our 2 whimsicals, Holiday Cheer and Quacknarok. Holiday Cheer, when activated, gives zombies little wreaths around their necks, so you can be jolly all year round, and Quacknarok is a returner from Black Ops 4, which, when activated, gives every zombie an inflatable duck floaty, and they quack when they die. The ability to earn the Season 1 Gobblegums through the random gum drops was unlocked through the Gobblegum Mania event, which ran congruent with the Merry Mayhem event, and emphasized using Gobblegums to unlock the rewards. Also alongside Season 1 launch, with the full edition of the COD shop, there was a section added for Gobblegums. Honestly, there's absolutely no reason to spend money on these since the game gives them out like candy, pun intended, but if you're a wallet warrior, there's something there for you now as well. And the final gameplay change to mention is the addition of 2 new trials across all 4 maps in Black Ops 6. These new trials are getting kills with the hand cannon, and getting kills with the combat axe, which added some much needed variety to the hold location or kill on location trials. With gameplay additions covered, I want to briefly talk about bug fixes. Treyarch actually fixed a ton of bugs with Season 1, while also introducing a ton more. If you hear that, that's the folly of running a live service game. Smile. While I won't cover every single one because I don't want this video to be 10 pekillion years long, I'll be highlighting the ones that I think affected the mode the most. Starting with Season 1 launch, we received a good amount of changes that were good for the game, including a full weapon pass for assault rifles and the HE-1 rocket launcher, the then long-awaited buff to Dark Flare, making it actually viable, as well as a complete redesign of all Gobblegum UI, including their pop-ups, and as well as on the zombie HUD, making them so much more visually appealing. These were all fantastic for the launch of Season 1 and only got better with the Season 1 Reloaded update. In this, we got the long-awaited Mangler adjustment during high rounds, as well as a pass on Vermin rounds taking fucking forever, and an adjustment to max armor, making it give you max armor plates as well. See, this is the joy of covering live service games as they get updates, because this segment from my Liberty Falls review, oh boy, you better clench your cheeks, because the spawn cap of Manglers is completely lifted, and you can have upwards of 6 club-armed, long-range armored bastards charging at you and shooting in a firing line formation. This is some serious levels of the wussling from World War II pre-patch issues. Is now completely irrelevant thanks to the overhaul done with this update. And during Season 2, we were given 2 very welcome changes, those being the addition of a challenge tracker and the return of server pause. The challenge tracker works very similar to its previous iteration in Modern Warfare 3. Players are able to track up to 10 challenges, which will then appear in the pause menu in-game, so you can actually keep tabs on that gold camo you're chasing. And with the return of server pause, players in the same party can finally pause the game. Still under the 15-minute timer, so they can take a small break from the hordes and regroup, or just use the bathroom if you really gotta go. The last thing I want to recap is the additional modes added during Season 1. So let's start off with Directed Mode. Now, this is something that they teased in the lead up to launch, but essentially, Directed is baby easy mode for Black Ops 6 Zombies. Its intention is to help new players, or people who may not play zombies very often, to complete the main quests, and with Season 1 launch, this started off with Terminus and Liberty Falls, until the Squid Games update added support for Citadelle Day More. In Directed Mode, rounds are capped and don't progress until certain milestones are reached. This could mean opening certain doors, progressing through quest steps, and ultimately culminating in a round 15 cap for the entire match. The game highlights everything, so parts, quest steps, puzzles, etc. are all shown to the player so they can grasp the basics of the map's Easter egg and be able to reproduce it in standard in order to obtain the rewards I mentioned in my Liberty Falls video. While this is what Treyarch intends for it to be used for, the community quickly found another use for it, this being to abuse the rounds repeating over and over to quickly grind camos. While I personally find this method extremely tedious and obnoxious, if people are able to grind Nebula this way, good for you, champ. However, with the January 3rd update, Treyarch actually slightly nerfed Directed by increasing the lull between rounds after 5 repeats, which made the tedious grind even more tedious. This patch also included a nerf to a popular speedrun strat on Terminus involving the Shock Charge and Shadow Rift's Big Game Augment, which could be bad on its own, but the patch also broke VFX on Citadelle and said that it included a fix for a bug where Vermin could do double damage, but actually didn't. So this, compounded with the absence following the map drop because of the holiday break, lit the community ablaze. Thankfully, on January 9th, they changed course, reversing the directed mode change and adding additional buffs to Shadow Rift to apologize for what they called nerfing fun. Back onto the other modes that dropped, during Season 1 Reloaded, we have received 3 new game modes, 1 permanent and 2 LTMs. These are the Zombie Training Course, Jingle Hells, and Deadlight Greenlight. The training course is very similar to the Zombies tutorial in Black Ops 4. Basically just how to play the game right for newbies joining this time around. Then, during Archie's Festive Frenzy, Jingle Hells returned, last seen in Cold War, but also leaked for Vanguard if anyone remembers that. The mode featured all the same gimmicks as last time. This means no mystery box, crafting table, or armory, the present drops, which are the player's only means of upgrades and earning cryo freeze to earn more presents, snowballs, and the naughty or nice power-up, which can either drop more presents or spawn 30 seconds of vermin enemies. However, this time around, we had some big changes, mainly being that all Easter eggs were enabled on Liberty Falls, which added some, and I emphasize some, replayability. Other small things are the frost rounds, which slow the player down while outside during the vermin rounds, and the snowmen that dot the map that can reward players with additional loot. The mode took place exclusively on a completely redesigned Liberty Falls and featured the Samta trials, alongside completely holiday-themed enemies with unique names, most of which were reused from Cold War, by the way. On that note, the round change music was reused as well, so overall this was just LTN. The final mode we received is Deadlight Greenlight, meant to coincide with the game's overarching Squid Game Season 2 collab. Basically, on both Citadelle des Morts and Liberty Falls, Young He from Squid Games will give players 3 different orders randomly. Green Light, which doubles all points while active, Red Light, where you must stop in place or else you lose points progressively as you keep moving, and Dead Light, which cranks up zombie health and aggression, just like the Rampage Inducer, for some interesting gameplay. Originally, this mode was definitely something. On launch, it was panned for a few reasons, namely the state of the game, as well as the fact that it didn't have any Easter eggs enabled and was capped off at round 10, meaning just as the game got fun, it ended. In the January 9th update, they increased the cap to 20, which was a step in the right direction, but honestly, should have just removed the cap in general and enabled Easter eggs. However, the cap was finally raised on January 18th to a whopping round 50, which was fucking awesome, if a little overkill. Woo! I think that's just about everything that's changed in Black Ops 6. So now, how about we get into this new map, shall we? Starting off where all of my reviews begin, let's discuss the intro cutscene and basic map progression. Taking place just a few short days after our team's breakout from Terminus Island, we catch back up with Sergei Ravenov near a castle in the French Principality of Avalon. Now in the employ of the French Syndicate, Ravenov is an old bitter man who buries his sorrow in the bottle and reminisces on the good times with one agent, Samantha Maxis. Just as he burns a hole through a photo of him and Maxis with his cigarette, Weaver and company show up and give him the rundown. They're here for Kraft, and to kill Franco, but mainly Kraft. As a dimensional breach starts up just as they arrive, Weaver tells Ravenov to hang back due to his lack of sobriety, and the team sets off. Players are then loaded into the town center and must make their way through the quaint village in order to reach the castle. On one hand, players can traverse up the hilltop and past Dickhead Daiquiri and a farmhouse. But on the other, players can move directly through the village and past Speedy Cola. Regardless of how you take it, both paths reconvene at the exterior of the castle, where Ravenov mentions that Franco has put the castle on lockdown due to recent events. While Ravenov poises that the team can open the gates quietly, players scale the walls of the castle and reorient a giant fucking cannon in order to blow the doors right the fuck up. Entering the main hall, there is yet another split that takes players through either the sitting room / undercroft section or the dining hall / dungeon, ultimately landing in the oubliette, where a mysterious Janus crate lies. After shattering the locks on the crate, the game uses this as a little introduction to the map's new enemy type, the Doppelgast, which we'll discuss in greater detail later. After murdering the poor sod, it will drop an Ethereum crystal that can be inserted into the portal within the crate and unlock the Uberspragen. So with all of that out of the way, let's actually dive into Citadelle Day more. This map takes a very unique approach to map design from the other two maps in Black Ops 6, which I truly appreciate. While still fairly easy to master and learn the ins and outs like all the maps Treyarch have worked on since Cold War, Citadelle is a way more close quarters map than even Terminus is, and really keeps you on your toes the entire match. While the first half of the map is fairly open, taking place in the small village on the steps of the castle, the interior of the Citadel is not just visually unique, but even more close quarters. The hallways are still wide enough for you to squeeze by a stray zombie or two, but if your teammate comes out of the direction you're trying to go in, God help you, bro. The two distinct environments help distinguish the whole map and make switching between both styles of gameplay fluid and interesting throughout an entire match. Citadel also harkens back to the tried and true format of giving players access to both training and camping spots on this map. In the training section lies the spawn room courtyard, the area by Speed Cola or by Deadshot, the dining room, or the dungeon in the depths of the castle. And for camping, I must say there are a comedic level of camping spots, like the fireplace in the dining room, above the trapdoor in the oubliette, the stairs in the pub and spawn. Actually, you know what? If there's a somewhat defendable corner in this map, assume it's a camping spot and you'd probably be right. After that, I want to hop into the vibe of this map, and this is something that I think Treyarch nails without a shadow of a doubt. As I mentioned, the two play spaces are incredibly unique visually and offer what I can only liken to Resident Evil 4. We have a village trapped in time, with the gleam of the barely risen sun and a subtle fog covering the quiet village. And once in the castle, while Citadel lacks the regal sense that, say, the castle from RE4 or even Dreisendrach has, there's still a story to be told everywhere you look. Graffiti from years of being a mob hideout, living quarters that seem quickly abandoned after the outbreak, and even an undetonated bomb from a shelling during the Second World War. But beyond that, there's an underlying sense of dread that pervades the entire castle, with weird alchemical labs and the dungeon and oubliette that harken back to a much older time. Citadel, just like the maps before it, also features zombies in small situations, but my personal favorite has to be the zombie locked in the dungeon. One must wonder to themselves just how they got stuck down there. Now, let's move on to our next waffle weapon, the Bastard Sword. Wait, that's it? Surely that can't be right. Ah, there we go. Citadel follows the tried and true Treyarch formula of having 4 elemental wonder weapons, this time in the form of swords. Our 4 elements this time around are electricity, light, void, and fire, and are based on the 4 bastard sons of the owl Guy de Saint-Michel, the lion, the stag, the raven, and the dragon. Each sword has a unique damage profile and abilities, but first, let's talk about some base statistics. Once round 10 is hit, zombies with helmets on their heads will begin spawning, and if killed, will drop a stamp, which can be taken into the dining hall and used on one of the 4 statues of armor that correlate to whichever sword the player wants. But first, they are awarded the normal Bastard Sword, which features a quick swipe back and forth that can be further buffed by Melee Macchiato, which means the 3 of us Melee Macchiato fans are winning. Originally, the swords were only able to kill 1 zombie per swipe, but after the January 3rd update, they were buffed to kill 2 zombies per swipe, and also added buffs to all of the upgraded swords as well. So all information going forward will be with the updated numbers, not the original. With that in mind, let's dive into the upgraded variants, starting with the Lion Sword, also known as Soleus. After getting the Lion Bastard Sword, 4 piss yellow parasites will spawn in, When killed with the sword, their energy will be transferred into the blade and must be taken to a small door near Speed Cola and meleeed to transfer the energy. Repeating this with all 4 parasites will allow entry into a small passageway, and players must insert their sword into the pedestal at the end to start the trial. 4 symbols will shoot out, and players must look at the base of the pedestal in order to see the order in which to shoot them. After this is complete, players are then awarded Soleus. As this is the lion sword, the hilt features a lion aspect and is honestly quite beautiful to look at. Like I said previously, each upgraded sword has a unique ability, and Soleus actually gets 3. After getting a very small 25 kills, the sword will light up with a strong glow and will be considered fully charged. Should you decide to hold on to the charge, you will begin to deal extra light damage, correlating to the Lightmend ammo mod, but not just that, you will also gain 4% of your armor back per kill. While this may not seem like a lot, if combined with the Melee Macchiato Vampiric Essence augment and Juggernaut's reactive plates, the player becomes essentially unkillable. If you decide to be trigger happy and expend your charge, players will activate a Whirlwind ability similar to the level 3 of the Chakrams of Vengeance from Black Ops 4. While not really the best of the bunch, Soleus definitely has its uses, and its armor regeneration is nothing to scoff at. Next, we have Caliburn, which, for the nerd who is into Arthurian lore, will recognize it as an alternative name for Excalibur. After retrieving the Dragon Bastard Sword, players can navigate to the main hall and insert the sword at the base of a dragon statue at the top of the stairs. After that, 3 braziers will light up across the map, and the fire within must be retrieved to power the statue. When picked up, the player will take constant burning damage as they race back to the statue, but thankfully, the game spawns zombies that are always one-hit melee, so they can heal quickly and keep moving. After finishing this process, Caliburn is available to the player. The hilt of Caliburn features 2 dragons screeching towards the top of the blade. But man, wouldn't it have been so much cooler if it was just 1 dragon with the blade coming out of its mouth? Ah well. After getting 25 kills, Caliburn will charge up and will proc Napalm Burst occasionally. Its main charge attack is launching 3 large projectiles in the direction that the player is facing, causing a massive explosion, and some small friendly fire damage, which can be avoided once PhD is purchased. This ability is fucking hysterical, because you can have a full train of zombies, and then wish them all sayonara with 1 tap of a button. It's so awesome. Our next sword is Durandal, which is interesting as the player can actually progress part of this upgrade quest before they even get the sword itself. Around the map are small metal rods, 2 of which can be gotten without even having the sword. One can be found by Deadshot, and another by throwing a shock charge at a power box near Speed Cola. The final rod can be obtained after retrieving the Stag Bastard Sword and killing an armored zombie in the dungeon who has the rod shoved into his abdomen. Once all 3 are obtained, players can go onto the ramparts of the castle and insert them into a device. A storm cloud will form, and after a small period, the Bastard Sword will be struck by lightning, channeling electric energy that must be put into the device. Repeat this cycle 3 times, and voila! Durandal is yours to wield. Durandal requires 25 kills to charge up, and besides the obligatory ammo mod activation, the sword has one of the coolest charge ups of the bunch. When activated, players will go full Emperor Palpatine and channel a large beam of lightning to shoot straight into the zombies. And our final sword, Balmung, is based on the Raven Knight. For this sword, players must collect a small artifact in the alchemical lab, and it must be taken into the basement of the pub and spawn. Once there, interacting with a small circle on the wall will insert the artifact and begin a small code-solving puzzle. Now, based on the artifact you have, it will dictate the alchemical and astrological symbol combo that must be inputted. And on screen are the codes that correlate to each artifact made by Glitch, because if anyone is making actual no-nonsense guides, it's this guy. Once solved, a small event will play out, where a portal will spawn on the floor, and the mechanism will spit out 3 orbs which must be guided into the portal. Repeating this 3 times in the time allotted will finish the upgrade, and after inserting your sword into the machine, it will spit out our Balmung. For the last time, after getting 25 kills, it will fully charge the sword and activate Shadow Rift with kills, but its charge attack is really where it's at. When used, players will slash a hole in the dimensional fabric, which sucks in all nearby zombies for a short time, just like the Apothecon Servant from Zombies Past. I genuinely love all 4 swords, and I'm really grateful that this map doesn't suffer from Dreisendrock symptom, where one is truly better than the rest. Another thing that applies to all swords is the ability to parry. all swords, including the regular Bastard Sword, feature the ability to parry any attack incoming in a 100-degree radius around the player. This includes incoming projectiles and even the Amalgam Grab, so in practice, it looks a little something like this. An extension of the swords are the incantations, which are just actual fucking magic, cause yeah, that's just something we can do now. Each quest for the incantations requires the sword that correlates and involves finding a small artifact or item and transforming it into something else. So let's speedrun these quests, shall we? First, talk to Kraft after opening Pack-a-Punch, come to the barn and shoot down this horseshoe. Go to the cannon and launch towards spawn, find Pegasus' horseshoe, take it to the spawn room, and charge it up and boom, profit. Using fire of any kind, light these 3 bonfires and kill the doppelgast that spawns. Pick up Ra's Ankh and charge it up and boom, profit. Throw a grenade into the sewer hole and spawn, kill the raven and pick up its foot, take it to the undercroft, charge it up, and boom, profit. And finally, use the lights in the dining hall to guide them to a small bust, pick up the brooch, charge it up, and get this, boom, profit. While 3 of the incantations are just kinda activating the correlating ammo mod, the electric incantation is arguably the best piece of equipment on the whole map. You see, the Amalgam returns on this map, and since his weakness is Deadwire, anytime he spawns, you can just kinda do this.
Oh no you don't!
Yeah, you can literally just fucking delete amalgams off the map. It's so satisfying and awesome to kick these fuckers to the curb. With the wonder weapons finally covered, let's jump into our singular new enemy type, the Doppelgast. As the next step of the evolutionary chain in the Dark Aether, the Doppelgast is a force to be reckoned with. Its speed and unpredictable movements make it something that must be constantly watched. And it can also shoot small spikes out of its body that, if hit, will temporarily stun and disorient the player. Citadelle also features a small evolutionary chain, which makes training really interesting, and it goes as follows. Zombies can die and spit out a vermin. Vermin can eventually turn into parasites. Parasites can grab and gobble up a zombie to become a Doppelgast, and if a Doppelgast merges with a zombie, it can spawn the amalgam. Thankfully, to keep this from being annoying, it hardly happens, and any player who is even barely paying attention can stop this train right in its tracks. And finally, before we move on to the side Easter eggs, I want to get into the fantastic fast travel opportunities on this map. Citadelle features 3 main fast travel methods: the cannon used to open the gate, the portal in the basement of the pub, and the sewer grate in the oubliette. The portal ties to the main hall of the castle. Meanwhile, the sewer slide will take players back to the spawn, which gives players quick access to the main areas of the map. And while I'm dipping my toes just a bit, after using the cannon to open the castle, it can actually be repaired using a blowtorch in the dining hall and finding the crank back in the spawn room to reorient it. By default, it faces the spawn room, but after fixing it, you can have it launch straight to the dining hall, meaning there is also a faster alternative to walking no matter where you're trying to get to. Now, let's dive fully into the side quests. Since I already mentioned the cannon, let's start there. While you may think the ability to change its direction is where the Easter egg actually ends, there's something there for anyone crazy enough to do it if you are interested. If you take the cannon a whopping 100 times, meaning you'll need to spend 50,000 points, it'll launch you into the bell tower in spawn and cause it to ring out, dropping 2 monkey bombs and causing a situation I can only describe as familiar.
La campana. Hay que obedecerla.
Él nos invoca. Where's everyone going? Can we go?
Anyways, let's jump into our free perk Easter eggs, starting with the bartending quest. Around the map, 3 bottles of liquor can be found, and if picked up, the player can return to the pub in the spawn and start a little minigame. Zombies will rush the counter, and the 3 drinks you picked up will have a color assigned to them. You must serve the zombies the right drink fast enough in order to keep the quest going. As each zombie receives their drink, they'll die on the spot and tip you some essence and other goodies until you complete it, rewarding you with a guaranteed can of PhD Flopper, which is good as that is the perk that has to set out on this map. Our next free perk involves the one, the only, Mr. Peaks. Coming to these 4 locations in this order, players will find 4 dancing Mr. Peaks, which after the final one is shot, will reward the player who shot the last Mr. Peaks with a free perk. After that, we have the small lockdown quest, which requires players to basically do half of the main quest, but once that's cleared, you open the secret wall in the Undercroft, and if you solve the puzzle and come back with each incantation, you can use them to light the symbols back up, and after that, a 3-round gauntlet will begin, which at the end, you'll be rewarded a free perk. And arguably, the most tedious free perk is following the raven that spawns as a part of the Void incantation quest for 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Yeah, I ain't making you watch all that, so,
He was El Puro!
Across the fields, across the plains, he ran so fast he dodged the rain.
He was El Puro! He hurried in to save the day. Gun in hand, and thrice they say. He was strong like a mule, he was stubborn like a mule, he even kicked like a mule. El Puro!
much better. Yeah, so after the time is up, he'll drop off a free perk, which at that rate, it's like, I may as well just spend the points to get the perk that I wanted anyways. With perks out of the way, let's quickly mention the little syndicate boxes that dot the map. While in no way similar to the Vault on Liberty Falls or the Armory on Terminus, Citadel features these syndicate crates around the map that shake. Should the player shoot them, they can receive either 3 drops of salvage or a parasite. After that, we have the Rat King crown. In the spawn, players can break open a window of a store and pick up a wheel of rare cheese, after which they can chase away 10 rats around the map, and after that is done, can take the cheese into the oubliette to get a shitload of loot, as well as a dope-looking crown that floats above your head for the rest of the match. Just like the other 2 maps, there's a way to spawn all 8 core power-ups, which is always handy to remember, because you never know when you're going to need that insta-kill or full power. After that, we have 2 protector-like fellas on this map, so let's start with the fireplace. If you grab Caliburn and use it to light 4 fireplaces quick enough, it'll summon flames that can actually track and kill zombies, which can be super useful. Especially considering it seems this quest can be done multiple times a match if necessary. On the flip side, we have the Chest Guardian, which requires players to find a chess piece in one of 4 locations, and then bring it to the chessboard in the sitting room. This board is set up to be a checkmate, and once placed, the board will clear and become a soul box. Getting the required number of kills will eventually spawn the Ghastly Knight, and it will follow you around, Goomba stomping on any zombie in its path. And for our last big side quest, we have the well thingamabob. If you come to the well near the spawn and wait for a vermin round, a vermin will crawl out of it and it will let you put points into it like the bank from Black Ops 2 in a sense. You can throw a grenade into the pit in order to pull your points out at any time, and you can actually use this to double your money if combined with a double points power up. Alright, with those covered, let's jump into our last few side quests, namely the bonus side Easter egg song. When doing the upgrade for each sword, a unique track will play from the Citadelle soundtrack, and the one that can be replayed in-game is Caliburn. If you go back to each of the braziers once you have the sword, you can relight them and initiate another listen to this absolute bop. And our final side quest, like usual, is the free 100 points that can be retrieved by shooting all the balls into the sockets on the pool table in the bar. Wow. Treyarch just can't be topped in this department, can they? I mean, the 3 maps we've gotten so far are crazy for side Easter eggs, and I love it so much. With all of that out of the way, I think it's finally time we get into the story and main quest for this map. So let's start where every map starts, the intro. Taking place 6 days after the events of Terminus, Citadel reunites us with Sergei Ravenov and Avalon. Now in the employ of the French Syndicate, Ravenov is a drunk who used the French Syndicate to evade capture by both Omega and the US government after the events of Cold War. Though he hasn't forgotten the sacrifice that Agent Maxis made for the world, he longs for who he once was. As Franco calls for his aid, the crew shows up, shocking Ravenov, who was sure that they died. After exchanging some words, especially about the fact that we're just rolling around with Peck, an outbreak occurs. Ravenov agrees to show the team where they were holding craft and hangs back with his bestest buddy in the whole wide world, William Peck. The crew navigates through the castle as Ravenov is introduced to Sam, who he finds discomforting. After reaching the Machine of the Angels, the crew finds Kraft's cell and opens the slot to speak to him. Peepaw shambles towards it and begins to talk. I just want to break real quick to mention that the music here is absolutely fucking peak. The track titled Chaos is a redux of Alistair's theme from Black Ops 4, but with the musical arrangement of Vanguard's main theme. Here, have a quick listen. Anyways, Kraft mentions that he has seen us before and knew that we would eventually show up. He tells us that we are in need of an ancient relic known as the Obscurus Altilium. He then whispers an ancient spell onto us in order to unlock the secrets the castle holds within. The grounds on which this map takes place is the site of an ancient leper colony circa 750 AD. It wouldn't be until the late 12th and early 13th century that the castle became closer to what we see it as now. This leads us to the 14th century when the enforcer who founded the French syndicate, Guy de Saint-Michel, with his bastard sons and also his enforcers, took over the castle. In the 16th century, Avalon was declared free by the Pope, and the French syndicate was born, ruling from the castle through both world wars and into the modern day. As the crew learns this, they solve the trials left by Guy, also known as the Owl, in order to test his sons to see who could please him. After retrieving all 4 upgraded swords, the crew finds a weak wall in the Undercroft with a load of alchemical symbols. Players can return to the pub and activate 6 jars that will have a symbol and a Roman numeral on them to correlate the order in which to shoot on the wall. Throughout this, Ravenov and Kraft exchange some small dialogue where Ravenov expresses regret for beating Kraft in order to obtain the location of the amulet. Kraft tells him to save it and asks him to grow and change as a person. Once the symbols are inputted, the crew can retrieve 4 spellbook pages from the sitting room in order to match them to one of 4 points of power around the map. After tracking these down and getting the required number of kills, a wall in between the sitting rooms and the Undercroft will have symbols imbued onto it. This correlates to the order in which players need to
Praise the sun! Praise the sun! Praise!
And by that I mean inspect their swords in front of the corresponding knight after first hitting them with their incantation. Once completed, an orb will fall down, and players must pick it up and complete 4 trials in order to charge the orb. These take place in the dining hall, the courtyard just outside the entrance to the castle, the spawn room, and the Undercroft, and each one requires a specific sword/element to be used to charge the orb. Once completed, the crew takes the orb back to the wall with the sword symbol on it and inserts the orb in order to unlock the Owl's secret study. In it, the Owl says his sons are a bunch of pussies and that only one of them was meant to make it this far. He shares that there is one last test in order to claim the amulet and that this will finally make him love them. Picking up the key, players can return to the spawn and place it at the base of the giant statue. After the vote, the Guardian will wake and teleport the crew to the arena and begin the boss fight. Scored by yet another bangin' boss fight theme, this time done by Tori Letzler, the Guardian is another 3-wave affair, but this time around, he is way more active in the fight. He has a couple of main attacks, which include shooting fireballs at you, jumping at you to either close the distance or to hit you with his big hammer, or he'll just stomp on you like you're a goddamn Goomba. After dealing enough damage, he will enter a short phase of invulnerability and will freeze up as dialogue from the Owl plays out. The arena will get smaller and smaller until you ultimately emerge victorious from the battle. The Guardian will explode and the amulet will float down for you to retrieve. At the same time, Kraft will beckon for the team to hurry back as the zombies attempt to break down his cell door. As the outro begins, the team rushes back to find that it's too late. The zombies have bitten a chunk out of Kraft's neck and he is quickly bleeding out. Weaver comforts him, but asks what their next step is now that they have the amulet. Kraft responds that they must take it to the dig site he was working at nearby, but to beware of the Sentinel trial and the artifact itself. Weaver asks Kraft about Richthofen's location, and it is at this moment that Kraft drops a huge reveal. He begs Weaver to give Richthofen some mercy, as Richthofen is Kraft's adopted son. Weaver appears confused as Kraft finally dies from his wounds. Ravenov tells the team he knows where the dig site is, and the cutscene ends as they rush off to our next map. I have to say, while not anywhere near as batshit crazy as the Terminus ending, I find the reveal of Richthofen and Kraft's relationship to be pretty insane. While the intel on this map is far from perfect, we can get a really good idea of what happened to Kraft after the war and how he came to adopt Richthofen, which is arguably my favorite part. After killing Von List, Kraft finds a page of the Tome of Rituals in his pocket, which enables him to break free from his room in Stalingrad. With his connection to Belikar broken, Kraft is left alone, without his new interdimensional friends, and without his spouse Sasha, who he had hoped to see when this was all over. As he reveals through the intel, it was always his and Sasha's dream to adopt a child, and in honor of him, Kraft goes to an orphanage in Germany and adopts the young Eddie Richthofen. In another radio, Kraft muses on how on edge the young Eddie is, seeing a bit of himself in the boy. He wonders what could possibly be bothering him. Here, Kraft reveals that he has joined the US government in working on a new project called MK Ultra, which means, yes, Kraft contributed to the methods by which Mason and Bell were both tortured by the government. LOL. The final piece of interesting intel to me is a document detailing Eddie's intake at the orphanage, in which they recount his mumblings about a house, which shows what many of us already knew, that Eddie still has vivid nightmares and remembers the events of the Ether story. The other story thing that I want to dip into is the Maya side quest. I mentioned in my Terminus review that Maya really hits her stride on this map, and we're finally here. I really feel like she gets even better in this map, her team dynamics are strong, and she even has her own dedicated quest. If you go to this door as Maya in-game, you can interact with the radio and break in to Franco's comm feed. He'll beckon who he thinks is one of his lackeys into the room, and the player must charge through killing vermin and an HVT doppelgast in order to unlock the final door. In this cutscene, Maya surprises Franco, and after locking the door thinking he's safe, Maya uses an explosive charge to blow it off the hinges, knocking Franco over. Maya walks in like she's fucking Batman, and while Franco begs for his life, Maya gives him the Frank Woods special and shoots him in both of his kneecaps. And while Franco says this won't bring her brother back, Maya hits him with the coldest shit she could have possibly said.
This isn't for Nathan. This is for me.
After killing him, the player returns to the map, and Peck will reach out to Maya to see how she's feeling after getting her revenge. While I not only love this quest because it makes Maya a total badass, I really love its finality. Peck talking to her like an older brother makes perfect sense for their relationship, and I really enjoy how they talk to each other across both maps so far. With everything I've talked about out of the way, I think it's time for my favorite section of these videos, and that's fucking cool things that Black Ops 6 does that isn't necessarily big enough to get its own section, but still deserves to be mentioned. Let's start off with the sheer number of crew interactions. While Terminus felt like Treyarch was still getting adjusted to the crew format, Citadelle is them hitting it in full stride with conversations between all characters echoing for almost an entire match. I mean, seriously, hop into a game with some buddies and just listen for every time they reach out to one another to yap about a little thing. It's so awesome. Then, we have the fact that the helmet zombies, who could potentially be annoying to deal with due to their inability to die to a headshot, actually stop spawning after all 4 swords are opened up, which is a nice touch. After that, we have the absolute hilarity of having Strauss and Raptor 1 on exfil. When the call for exfil comes, the game will play a quote from one of the duo, and I love just how pissed off they are at each other. Raptor 1 complaining about Strauss and his egg salad sandwiches, and Strauss being mad that he can't use the helicopter instruments is so great. And one last detail to point out is the level of detail Craft will go into during the sword upgrade quest, as well as during the main quest itself. For every character, every sword, and every step, Craft is right there with a little historical note or a tidbit that lets the player in on his relationship with Richtofen, and it works flawlessly. His dialogue may seem one-off at first, but if you actually listen, Peepaw might say a thing or two that'll make you point at the screen like Leo DiCaprio. And finally, as I always say in these videos, the music. Citadelle has arguably one of the best soundtracks of any zombies map in the modern era. The tracks that correlate to all four swords, Chaos as I mentioned previously, our latest Easter egg song Slave, sung by Vicky Serikis, and the heart-pumping boss fight theme, The Guardian, are all fucking stellar. I mean, seriously, just listen to this really quick. And here we are again. It's time to get into what doesn't really work for Citadelle, so let's start off with arguably the biggest critique, the fact that if you pick up all the intel before doing the quest, it completely blows the twist of the ending. Located just one door from the spawn is a radio titled The Foundling, which immediately blows away the fact that Craft adopted Richtofen. I find it so crazy that Treyarch would put this radio so close to the beginning of the map's progression, because players are bound to find it, and by the time they get to the cutscene, the reveal doesn't mean anything because that radio told them the same information 5 hours ago. And I'll use this to go over the intel in general in this map because, besides a few gems, it's super weak sauce. We get some nice radios about Craft like I mentioned in the good, but everything else doesn't really do anything for the story. On top of that, we have a radio about when Craft met Alistair Rhodes, but nothing about what became of that. Also, besides the one mention of Von List, there are no references to what became of the Dark Ether entities after Vanguard's conclusion. Also, this map lacks any deeper explanations of how canon Chaos is, so it's like, what was even going on with the Terminus ending, huh? When this map was being teased, they emphasized a lot of the magic side of this map, as well as the fact that Craft really shouldn't be alive at this point in the story, and yet, that detail is almost completely omitted. I would have loved to at least have the entities named by Craft, especially since they were such a huge part of Vanguard. And the last point I'll make about the intel system is the lack of radios fleshing out the crew. There is one titled You Would Have Done the Same for Me, in which Carver and Weaver spend some time talking about their freedom, but after that, there's nothing. I would have loved it if we got at least one other radio that maybe went a bit deeper into Maya or how the crew feels about her. Not intel related, but at least character related, Peck and Ravenov are criminally underused in this map, despite being radio handlers. Ravenov has his one conversation with Craft and a handful of ones with the crew, but besides that, he's silent, and the same goes for One-Eyed Willie over there. I have no issue with our group being as big as it is, but that's only if they all get to contribute in some way. On to actual gameplay issues now. While the map layout is really good, I do feel it's a bit held back. Specifically, how much of the actual castle you actually get to explore. When you look at Der Eisendrache, there's a pretty hefty amount of interior space that really makes you get the castle aesthetic. And while I think Citadelle does a better job of recreating a medieval castle, there isn't much to rummage around in. From there, let's get into the traps of this map, which are both really lackluster. The oil trap sounded cool at first, but it takes way too long to actually start up, to the point where by the time you actually run your horde through the trap, they've escaped it. And then we have the points of power, which are essentially regional ring of fire traps. This could just be a skill issue, but I cannot, for the life of me, understand how these damn things work. Every time I use it, they turn off almost immediately, and I'm left there with my willy in my hand thinking, well, that was a waste of 1,000 points. I'm either missing how to actually use these traps, or they just kinda suck. And it could be neither, it could be both, I guess. We'll never know. Now, onto the smaller things, starting with the lack of an in-game way to solve the Balmung puzzle. Now, I shared the images that Glitch created previously, but say you're someone who doesn't use Twitter or social media in general, the map makes no attempt to actually provide you a way to solve it yourself besides trial and error, which is my biggest pet peeve for zombies maps. If I have to use an external source to solve your shitty Easter egg step, it makes me super sad. And the last thing, while I think the Syndicate crates are cool, I really miss the key system from Terminus and Liberty Falls. Sure, the rewards were often bad, but the times where they were actually helpful, they are super helpful. So I can only hope this feature comes back in a future map. And just like that, we've made it to the end of another Big Sam review. Citadelle des Morts was not the map I was expecting, but man is it the map that I'm loving. The swords are great, the layout is fun, and the inclusion of craft, all of it is just absolute peak. See, this review was originally supposed to end with me saying, see ya whenever the next map drops, but since we have the tomb, see you soon? As always, I want to say thank you for continuing to listen to me yap about Call of Duty Zombies, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day wherever you are. Take care, everyone.
I know what that is!